everybody. So we are here. It's very exciting. We are here to talk about the latest comic book movie. We're talking about Spider-Man Homecoming. And my friend Trevor is here from How to Love Comics. And introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, I'm Trevor from How to Love Comics. I'm a website all about how to get into comics. If you want to get into them, answer your questions, and just make things easy for you, because comics can be confusing. It's like, what is this and what is that? I make it easy for you.
He really, really does. And so I'm really excited to talk about Spider-Man Homecoming. And first, I thought we'd talk a little bit about the comics. I did read a few comics to get ready.
Yep.
And one thing I wanted to know is, how has Spider-Man evolved over the years as far as the comic books? I got the impression that he's been more consistent than, say, like Batman, where Batman's had all these different, or even Wonder Woman or whatever, has had all these different versions, and some are darker, some are lighter, whatever. That's not really the case with Spider-Man. Is that, you agree with that?
When Spider-Man was first created, it was very much meant to be a young hero. And throughout the years, I think Marvel has made him allowed to be a bit more older.
Okay.
So first, like when we started, he was in high school, and then 30 issues later, we see him transition into college and then the workforce. And I think so that's how he's evolved, is through age more than anything, and stories because of that. Because of the way the medium worked, stories were by default they're quite lighthearted, but they allowed to enter some a bit more darker and some different tones throughout the years, especially when you sort of hit the 80s, where comics were starting to get a bit darker. So there's some more tragedy, or for instance Gwen Stacy dying in the 70s, which was a big deal at the time. So it sort of evolved in tone, but then people wanted a young Spider-Man again. So there's been times, and also things like he got married to Mary Jane, so that's sort of how he's evolved in that sense. But then fans demand.
When did he start working for, like, it's the Daily Bugle, right?
Yep.
When did he start, like, in J. Jonah Jameson and all that?
Yeah, that was very early on. That was sort
Okay.
of like from issue 2 or 3 onwards.
Okay, so he was a high school student working.
Yeah, so he was just trying. Yeah, he was sort of like freelance. He was able to find, get pictures of his, of Spider-Man pretty easily. So you get some pretty good cash.
Cool. And would you say that Spider-Man is Marvel's most popular character?
I'd say so. He's probably been the most consistently selling, always the up there at the top. The X-Men probably did take the reins from the early 80s onwards, but Spider-Man's sort of consistently up there.
Okay. Now, in the Miles Morales, that's fairly recent, correct?
Yeah, so that's probably in the last 6-7 years he's sort of come on the scene.
Okay. And there's other versions of Spider-Man. There's like a Spider-Gwen or something like that, or different?
Yeah, so there's sort of different. So Spider-Gwen is if Gwen Stacy had become Spider-Man instead. So it's a different sort of universe. It's like more of like a what-if kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so and then there's obviously Spider-Woman and all these different although Spider-Woman was sort of a creation of Marvel in terms of making sure that they can't, but when the TV rights were around, like in the 70s, that the TV people couldn't make a Spider-Woman and then own the character, so Marvel did it before they could.
So the Spider-Man, I guess, rogue villains.
The Rogue Gallery, yeah.
Yeah, Rogue Gallery. You've got Dr. Octopus, Green Goblin, Venom. What's some of the other big ones?
So I guess Mysterio is another one, and we've got the Scorpion. There's a lot of different tiers, but just like Batman, he has a lot of different villains. So we have things like obviously like Dr. Octopus, like you said. We have Electro. We have Morbius, the living vampire. There's also just your general crooks, just your blue collar criminals, and there's the very the big deep pool they can go with.
Okay, cool. So evidently in this movie, they go quite far away from the comics in some of the casting and some other things. How do you, I guess, reconcile that as a comic book fan? Is that hard for you?
Not really. I mean, it's the particular characters that they have done with. Some were more interesting in terms of decisions than others. I've seen some people complain about Flash Thompson being a bit of a he's sort of meant to be a jock in the comics, but
Right.
here he's a bit of sort of an alpha nerd, you could almost say, with a pretty immature. I don't mind that so much because in the comics the character progresses on to be the first incarnation of Venom, where I doubt that's going to happen in the movies. I don't think he's just going to be a pretty small character throughout. He's just there to be the jerk.
Okay.
So I don't think it's going to be a big deal. Ned Leeds was an interesting choice though, because he sort of plays the role of a character who was Miles Morales' best friend Gengi. Um, Although in the comics, Ned Leeds is also was a reporter at the Daily Bugle, who then later on became the Hobgoblin, which was like a Green Goblin-like villain.
Okay.
But he was like the third incarnation of it, so which is a weird choice. So
Mm.
I don't know why they chose to do that. Maybe they want to open it up for a sequel, or in one of the sequels where that character transitions into something like that. But it's a weird choice, and
Hmm.
if you could stew on these things as much as you like, but it's sort of otherwise, if you start chewing on them, it starts ruining the movie over something which
Right.
isn't that really a big deal.
Hmm. Okay, cool. Yeah, I forgot to mention up front that this is spoiler filled podcast. So if you haven't seen the movie,
Spoilers,
then
spoilers.
yeah, then don't listen or watch this. So yeah, because they also at the very end they have a reveal. We'll talk a little bit more about it about that Michelle is Mary Jane. And there are some people who, or was MJ, as they say.
MJ, yeah.
Yeah, some people were pretty annoyed about that. But have they ever? Has Mary Jane always been white and red hair and the whole thing?
Yeah, pretty much. It's just
Okay.
always sort of that's been the constant where she's red hair, especially the red hair.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's an interesting choice. I don't know where they're going to go with that, and I understand they didn't want to put why they wouldn't want to put Mary Jane in the movies because then it sort of starts retreading the whole Sam Raimi movies.
Right.
But we'll see where that goes with that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. So, what do you think of the previous 5 films? All right. Do you have sort of strong opinions about them?
Yeah, well, it's been a long time since I've seen the Raimi ones, but I remember at the time really enjoying the first two. The third
Mm-hmm.
one, and because they hit all the right notes. They feel like Spider-Man, and you got Peter Parker struggle. Yeah, you got the romance element in it too, which was very important in the early days. Was a lot of teen drama, a lot of romance, but you've also got you got some big swinging villains as well. Where you got the Green Goblin, you've got the Doctor Octopus, you got Sandman. Well, that's in the third one,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get Venom as well. But the third one, it was a bit of a mess. They tried to put too much into it. They could have taken a story out and it would have been a better film, I reckon.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Agreed.
as for the Amazing Spider-Man, they're okay, but they're definitely not as good as the Raimi ones. And yeah, there's some
Mm-hmm.
interesting choices I didn't like, and there was a lot of things where they felt like they retread the Raimi films, and they didn't really need to, or they went on this weird tangent which they didn't like.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, so the first Raimi film, I have to say, I don't feel like it holds up super well. I watched it recently, and I don't know, it feels really young. Like I don't know, it just feels like a little Power Ranger, especially towards the end. It's very campy, And I think that's sort of Sam Raimi's style. And
Yeah.
but there are good moments. It's not a bad movie. It's just it wasn't quite as good as I remembered it, I guess. But then
It probably hasn't aged well. Yeah.
yeah. And then, but I think that Spider-Man 2 holds up amazingly well. The writing is just solid. It has emotion. It has Peter having to make choices that are really hard. And I think Dr. Octopus is just so great. Alfred Molina is a great actor. He has like real motivation as far as his wife. And it makes sense why he would be angry at Peter. So I think amazing. I think Spider-Man 2 is one of my favorite comic book movies.
Yeah.
Really good. Spider-Man 3, I agree with you. It's just very messy. It just doesn't work, I don't think, very well. And there's some interesting things in there. It's watchable, I guess, but you have to put up with a lot.
Yeah.
And then Amazing Spider-Man, I don't really care for either of those movies. I just think that, I don't know, I just don't connect with them. I feel like Andrew Garfield has always felt kind of smug to me in the role.
Yeah, he's a much more smug, yeah.
And so yeah.
He was a younger Spider-Man, which I liked, but yeah, he was a bit of a dick at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And I hate Electro. I thought Electro was so annoying. I just couldn't deal with it. He was so annoying to me. And so that really ruined Amazing Spider-Man 2 for me. And it felt like you were watching an advertisement for an upcoming movie more than an actual story. And I hate that.
Oh, yeah, there was all that Sinister Six setup, which they won't go anywhere now anyway, probably.
And the Rhino and everything. I don't know. It's just, and the weird, the Harry plot line just doesn't work. I don't know. It was just...
No, well, they didn't need to do that again anyway because they'd already done it in the Raimi films.
Right. Yeah. So I don't really like those movies. I don't think they work very well. So I was really excited for this movie to come along. And I was looking forward to it. Of course, we got the merging of Sony and Marvel in this project. And what were your overall thoughts on Spider-Man Homecoming?
I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, a lot of laughs. It very much felt like Spider-Man. You have especially the early Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, John Romita kind of era, which is of that first 100 issues in the 60s. The young sort of Peter Parker and Spider-Man. He's sort of inexperienced still learning, and it's lighthearted, and but it still has some weight to it as well, which I thought was quite good. Had a lot of homages to certain stories, which I thought didn't feel tacked on, which was good. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they can just do them for the sake of doing them, and they don't always work. But no, they did quite well. And and I like the fact that it was a smaller story as well. Mm-hmm. It didn't feel they didn't go all out in the first movie, which is good too.
Yeah, I also enjoyed it. I feel like the hyperbole is very strong in this movie, around this movie. It's got a very high Rotten Tomatoes score. People are saying it's the best Spider-Man movie ever released. These kind of things. So it's like, I have to separate because I don't agree with that. I don't like it that much, but I certainly enjoyed it. And I thought it was a solid, fun, entertaining film. And so...
I mean, they're always going to try and hype up Spider-Man because Spider-Man's a license to print money almost.
Yeah, exactly. And, people enjoyed it that much, then more power to them. But I had some issues, some things I wish that had been done better. But I like most movies, but I thoroughly enjoyed it also. So it's right in there, I would say, in my middle to higher Marvel movies. I like Doctor Strange more than most, so I'd probably put this behind Doctor Strange, but ahead of Ant-Man. So, which are both movies I enjoy very much. So, there you go. Yeah. Okay, so it starts out the movie with there's sort of two setups that you get. You have the home video from Peter, kind of that's sort of, in a way, kind of sort of an origin. It's like a recap, maybe for people that haven't watched Civil War in a long time or never watched Civil War.
Yeah, it's clever exposition.
Yeah. So you liked that? That was kind of
I like
fun.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
And it sort of fit within that whole teenage kind of character as well, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, and it was a really fun way to kind of get you to know Tom Holland as Spider-Man. Or is a way to get to know Tom Holland as Peter Parker. Because in Civil War, we only saw him as Spider-Man.
True.
He drops in as, hey, everyone. And so, are you a fan of Civil War? Did you like Civil War?
I really enjoyed Civil War, yeah.
Yeah, me too. So that was kind of fun to sort of see his perspective, and you get to see his interactions with Happy and with Tony and all of that. That was a lot of fun. And then you also get this other setup with the Vulture, and it's 8 years previous, right after the Battle of New York. He's there cleaning. He's a salvage guy, and he gets shut down by, his name is Adrian Toomes, and he gets shut down by the Department of Damage Control, which is run by Tony Stark. And this is really devastating to him because he's put a lot of money into this. And so turns out he decides then to become like an underground arms dealer, basically.
Yeah, so he's sort of working on the black market.
Right. Yeah. So what do you think of that? That was interesting.
I like that. Yeah, it's an interesting way of actually setting up the character, because the character's always very, very much been like a blue-collar kind of villain. But the way and it's a good way of introducing all these crazy devices into the universe without having to sort of go too left of field, because it's all these things where it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. If it's alien technology from this, they could probably retrofit it. Yeah. I like the way that he it was good in terms. I like the idea that damage control, which is a reference in the comics, it's done differently in terms of what it was. It was meant to be a comedy kind of comic where they cleaned up after all the superhero fights. But yeah, no, it was good. A good way of setting them up quickly, with not too much laborious sort of pathway, and yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I liked it, but my only complaint, because I've heard a lot of people say that Vulture is like the greatest villain since sliced bread, and I mean, he's fine. I thought he was fine, but I don't understand why people are saying he was better than Loki and stuff, and I'm just like, really? Because to me, there has been a common trope within Marvel films that you have the villain is a businessman of some kind who gets spurned by the Avengers in some way, gets angry, and fights back against whether it's Jeff Bridges in the Iron Man movie, whether it's Darren Cross in Ant-Man, whether it's whoever that guy was in Iron Man 3. There's aside from the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, like practically all of the Marvel villains have been men in a suit, whether it's the Robert Redford character in Winter Soldier. You had there's a long list of these, and so I guess to me he just seemed like a normal Marvel villain. I enjoyed it. It was fine, but I just don't understand why people loved him so much.
I don't know. Maybe it's just Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton seems to get a lot of love. So. And he's in this renaissance at the moment where he can't do no wrong at the moment. So maybe that's it.
I guess so. Yeah, I didn't grow up with Batman, 89. I didn't see it until last year. I didn't really care for it, to be honest. And so I guess I just didn't grow up. Like the first time I saw Michael Keaton was Beetlejuice. It was very scary. And
See, I grew up with Batman 89 on VHS, and I watched it a fair bit, so maybe that's...
Maybe. I don't know. I just think he's being the hyperbole is strong, but he's fine. Anyway, it's just funny because, like, yeah, Marvel does love this sort of man in a suit, but this is sort of a blue collar version of the
Yeah,
villain in a suit.
he's definitely much more blue collar. Yeah, he's working with his hands and everything. Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
quite interesting to see how they've done in the movie with him though, because the in the comics he was the very first Spider-Man supervillain all the way
Mm-hmm.
back in Amazing Spider-Man #2. But
Oh,
he's also
interesting.
this geriatric old guy in a vulture suit, pretty much. This is like a green suit with a puffy kind of neck, sort of like a vulture, and wings. And he'd just flap around and steal things. So, in terms of how do you translate that into a movie without looking dodgy
Mm-hmm.
or really silly, I reckon they did quite well in terms of that
Yeah.
sort of the metal wings with the turbines.
Yeah, those were cool. The metal wings were very cool. And I
Oh,
do like
definitely.
that they gave him some motivation. I think that's good.
Yeah, you definitely need some motivation
Hmm.
beyond just I want to steal things, which
Yeah, I just greed. He at least
yeah,
has family and stuff. It kind of reminded me a little bit of like Zemo in Civil War. Like his motivation is his family, so it added kind of a layer there that that he had, and so yeah, he was good. And so let's see, what did you think of Happy and Tony in this film?
yeah. So I'll start with Tony Stark first. Um, he was in a lot of the marketing. It
Right,
was very much a sell. Tony Stark, Iron Man is going to be in this movie, and the trailer made it look like he was going to be in all of the movie, where he's going to be in all the time. He's going to be hanging out with Spider Man all the time. But luckily, and I was put off by that. It's like, well, you don't need that much that much Iron Man to
right,
sell Spider Man. Luckily, it wasn't like that, and he's in there for less than 10 minutes of the movie all up. But I liked that he sort of acted as the Uncle Ben of the for this particular Spider Man, in terms of not so much in having a tragedy, but being the father figure.
mm-hmm.
Um, which I like that, because you can't retread Uncle Ben again, because it's been
Right,
done. It's already been done twice. So you got to find a
right.
new angle to teach the responsibility element of being a hero without having to say great power comes great responsibility, pretty much.
Right. Yeah, I was glad we didn't get that again. I was glad we didn't get an origin story again, that they
Oh,
just kind of
same, yeah,
dived into it, definitely. And
yeah. People,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, people don't need to know this. Need to do the Spider-Man origin again, especially so soon.
Yeah,
And most people know what the origin is anyway.
yeah. It's kind of like the origin of Batman. We all know, like
Yeah.
you still haven't seen Batman v Superman, but
No, I've seen the first half, and then
oh, okay. So they do it again, and you're just like,
yeah,
what?
and that was so on the nose with the whole
The
the
pearls,
pearls that wrapped around the gun, and then they explode off. Oh, that was
right?
oh no.
Oh dear. Yeah, exactly. I actually really liked Tony in this movie. I really thought that it felt like a return to the Tony Stark that I knew and loved in Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 2 and Avengers. I feel like we haven't had that sort of quippy, funny kind of Tony in a long time. That he's
Mm.
been ever since Iron Man 3, Avengers Age of Ultron, and Civil War, he's been kind of sad and angry and brooding, and dealing with all this
Yeah,
stuff with his parents and panic attacks and all this stuff. So it was really fun, I thought, to see sort of Tony again. I'm not sure that it really makes sense if this is supposed to happen after Civil War, and you think of where we left Civil War.
yeah.
I don't know if it really adds up.
Maybe he's just having a good week. Who knows?
Maybe. Because
Well, I guess they just didn't want to. Maybe they just didn't want to bog it down too much. By if you start having angry, sort of sad Tony again, it sort of bogs down and distracts.
yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed seeing him back again because I don't care about. I only care about his good movies, to be honest. If there were tons of plot holes and the cinematic universe didn't make any sense, I really wouldn't care. I just care about good movies. And But there was one part of continuity that I thought was strange because they're moving. Because at the end, at the end
Yeah.
of Civil War, the Avengers have disbanded. They're done. They're over, right?
Yeah, well, I guess maybe that just like half the team is disbanded, or there's only a small portion, which is the Tony side of the team. So maybe they're
Hmm.
continuing on it with the Avengers brand without them.
Because I'm like, why are they moving to this place? And that place had already existed. Like
Yeah,
we
that's what
saw
I
it in
thought too. Yeah,
Ant-Man and other things. And why would they have a press conference to announce a new Avenger when the
well, I guess
Avengers
it's
are?
maybe don't know. Maybe it was bad press having the heroes fighting each other, so it was a matter of you know, something.
Maybe,
It's good PR.
maybe that letter the Cap sent him at the end that really, that really did the ticket. All is
Yeah,
well. All is well now. I mean, he's going to get some more brooding back. If next time we'll see him, will be in Infinity War.
yeah, probably.
So I would think. So
Unless he shows up somewhere else as well.
he's going to get upset again. I don't want that. But anyway, I thought it was nice to see him back to the old Tony that
Yeah,
I like. So that was fun. And it was fun, I think, to see Happy. I kind of felt like, boy, you're not doing a very good job taking care of this kid. You're really sucking at your job. I mean, you can't just respond, be like, I mean, how long does it take to be like, cool it, kid, or something like that? Like,
yeah.
he goes through those text messages and it's like, no response, no response, no response.
Oh yeah, that's right. I guess it maybe when you get to too many, it's like, oh, this is just too hard.
So yeah, it was fun to see Jon Favreau back acting
Yeah, definitely.
because we haven't seen him for a while. I think the last time I saw him in anything was this little movie called Chef, which I enjoyed very
Oh
much.
yeah, yeah. I remember
Cute little
that.
movie. But that's one of the great things about the MCU is it's just so rich. I mean, you could have what's his name, Falcon, appearing in
Yeah,
Ant-Man, or or just
yeah,
it's just there's so much talent that has is been a part that they have to use and draw off of and everything like that. So
yeah. They got to a point where they can cherry pick characters, and people will be excited for it too.
sure.
That's the thing. It's like you could chuck in a character, and they're like, oh, this guy again. But like you got enough depth in there that you can cherry pick who you want into a movie, and people will be excited for it too, and it doesn't feel tacked in.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It just feels like a fun kind of cameo.
Yeah.
Okay. So Peter is forced to wait for his next mission. And I kind of wonder also if it's like, shouldn't they just say, like, just go live your life and we'll call you in, like, before, just let him know, like, instead of he's waiting every night.
Well, they sort of said that, just keep doing what you're doing, and
Yeah. Can
pretty
you
sure
just
they
do
did tell him that. And maybe just that he's that eager though.
He's just very anxious.
Yeah,
So okay, so he's very anxious. He tells everybody that he has this Stark internship, and he tells Aunt May, he tells everybody. And so let's talk about some of the characters at the high school. And
yeah,
first, there's Michelle. This is Zendaya, is the actress. And we already talked about that they announced at the end that her nickname is MJ.
MJ. So
Yeah.
calling back to Mary Jane there, yeah. Whether
And
she be whether she be like a love interest later on, who knows? But being with the MJ thing, I feel like she might end up being a love interest.
I would think so. Yeah,
Yeah,
probably. I thought that she did have a few funny moments, but she was just very one note. She was supposed to be the Ali Sheedy character from Breakfast Club, I guess. That
yeah,
was sort of what they were. And I don't know. It was fine. It was fine, but I feel like they could have done a little bit more with her, given her maybe one nice scene where she's uh, has something emotional to say, or I don't know, just
yeah.
something other than just being sullen the whole time.
But yeah, I know what you mean. She was very one note, but I feel like she did pretty well though. She was very, all her
Mm-hmm.
jokes were pretty much on tone, on hit that right note every time. She wasn't in enough of the movie to the point where if she was just doing that one thing, it would just be like tiresome. I
Yeah.
think any more, she probably would have been tiresome though. Yeah.
And they really could use her as more of an active character than we've seen with Mary Jane in the previous films, because on the Disney Channel, she has a secret agent show that she does.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, where she is fighting and doing different stuff. So I think that if they were creative, I think they could actually make her more of an active protagonist, which would be cool.
I wouldn't be surprised if they pull her in for the sequel. She gets pulled in and she knows the identity of Spider-Man, Peter Parker's identity as Spider-Man, and she plays sort of that secondary Ned kind of friend in the guy in the chair almost, or something along those lines.
Yeah. Well, and I liked the fact that they did have such a diverse cast. That's great, especially for a movie that is meant for teenagers, because as the target demographic, because it's going to be a good thing. It's going to be a good experience for kids to go to a superhero movie and see characters who look like them and who they can relate to. Yeah. That's a good thing.
Yeah, it definitely is. It works well, and it didn't feel forced either. Some people complain that it's done for the sake of doing it, but no, it felt natural, because if you go to a high school and it's like that already, so it's a diverse, depending where, or I guess depends where you are, but
especially in Queens.
Yeah, in Queens is the melting pot of different cultures.
Exactly. And they did capture a real spirit of New York, which was nice. I really liked just little things like the scene in the deli. In the deli, yeah. Yeah, and the one and then when he says, "Oh, well, they have too much bread at this one, and they have too much," that really does kind of happen. They have their sandwich place or their. So I thought that was kind of nice. You got a real sense of place. And it just felt diverse and interesting, and I think that's good. And then you had Liz, and she was just sort of the girlfriend character. There wasn't a whole lot to her.
Yeah, she was the love interest, although she wasn't like the beauty queen kind of thing, or like the model kind of one. She was sort of, she was smart in her own right, sort of academically smart and everything. So she was, so she wasn't like a bimbo by any means. So she was,
yeah, agreed. They just didn't flesh her out all that much.
Yeah, she didn't have she wasn't a well-fleshed character.
Yeah. Okay, then they had Flash, and you mentioned that he is a different character than in the comic books, but this character was the real miss for me. I thought he was very annoying, and his whole role is just to be annoying. In the movie, just to be a jerk, and it's just why are you being a jerk? What is your motivation? Has he done something to you? I guess he took his spot in the decathlon or whatever, math decathlon team or whatever. I don't know. I just thought he was very obnoxious.
yeah, he was. But I mean, I dealt with people like that in high school in terms of they're just jerks for the sake of being jerks or immature. Because I went to an all boys school, so the whole penis Parker thing, it's sort of the kind of thing I could hear going on. That's very high school for me.
Brought back memories.
Brought back memories. It's the kind of jokes you'd hear in high school with me.
Yeah, I don't know.
I sort of liked it in a very lame kind of nostalgic way.
It's funny.
I mean, it's really not creative in it. It's not creative at all, but considering he's 15 years old, when the character's meant to be 15, 16, it's sort of 15, 16-year-olds, that's the kind of level of maturity they're at anyway.
I guess so. I don't know. I just felt like maybe they just had too much of him. Maybe was part of the problem. He was in there too much for a bully character. I mean, he just was he was a miss to me. I just thought he was annoying. But I know he was supposed to be annoying, but he was too annoying.
Yeah.
But and I like the actor. He's in Grand Budapest Hotel, and I love that movie.
Oh yeah.
He also doesn't talk in that movie hardly at all. So maybe
that's true.
That's part of it. I don't know, but I don't know. He was my least favorite character in the movie.
Not fair enough. Yeah.
So, and then we have Ned. And he was really fun. I thought they had good chemistry. They felt like actual friends, and I just thought I loved the way that both him and Peter were like continually like blown away by everything that happened.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's like very much like that dorky teenager thing to do as well. Get blown away by all the, you know, they find something cool and they fangasm over it. And
yeah, I liked. There was one point where it says something like, that this is they put their alien tech on. And retrofitted or something like that, and then he's like, "That's the coolest sentence that has ever been uttered." It's like that. I know, just that they were just like, "Wow, that's awesome," but I have to keep going, or "That's really cool." I liked that a lot, and I don't know, they just seemed like real friends to me.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, it felt like an organic friendship.
Yeah,
It didn't feel like he was a side character. It's like, oh, okay, we need a friend now, so we'll have some friends. You know, someone say something friend-like, and he disappears.
yeah,
But no, it felt good. I really liked that he got that moment as being the guy in the chair in the
yeah.
library. And you could just tell how much he was loving it. I really like that joke when he gets caught by the
That
teacher. Obviously, he can't say what he wants to what he's actually doing. So he says the most obvious thing what teenagers are probably doing in the library alone.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. Oh, yeah, he was really, really funny. And so one of the critiques that I had in my review about this movie is that I didn't feel like there was enough Spider-Man being Spider-Man. Like there was just like, I think, one scene of him swinging through the city, and the rest was, I felt like there was a lot of scenes of him like crashing into pools and crashing into, you know, backyards and stuff like that. But like, I know, I just missed that sort of like awe and just excitement of like Spider-Man swinging through buildings, you know, and there was just so little of that. And I just felt like, to me, all the action scenes felt more like Iron Man scenes as far as the way the action was than a Spider-Man scene, like the boat scene, some other stuff we'll talk about. Like, but I don't know, I just missed that. Did you miss that at all?
Yeah. I wonder if there was a choice that they made intentionally to separate themselves from the other films, which had a lot more of that in there. I guess the whole crashing into things, he's still quite new as Spider-Man. Maybe they intentionally did that because they wanted a Spider-Man who still makes mistakes, still make mistakes, still learning. So he's obviously on his training wheel still.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way they showed it. And him swinging through, doing all these amazing things through the buildings is their way later on to show that he's more experienced. Who knows? But yeah, it doesn't feel as Spider-Man-y without the whole swing through the building, and the fact that Spider-Man's a very acrobatic character.
Yeah, like if I was 15 and had powers to swing through buildings, I would think you'd just want to do it just for fun.
Yeah, well, they did show a little bit of that in that sort of montage that after school montage, a little bit, probably
A little bit.
Yeah,
There's like him trying to, like, it's most like him trying to do stuff as far as like stopping the bike robber and, you know, basically him being bad. There's a little bit of him swinging there, but that was basically the only time.
Yeah.
In the movie.
Well, I guess a lot of the other parts of the movie, he wasn't really in the city. He was a lot of it was in the suburbs or in the out in Washington, which doesn't really have many tall buildings.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, because even in the Washington Monument scene, he's all of a sudden afraid of heights. It's like, well, that was weird.
Yeah, I thought that was a bit of a weird. Yeah, that was a bit of a weird thing. I thought that at the same time too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess they tried justifying by saying he hasn't been this high before, but still, it's a weird kind of thing. Yeah,
I would think some of those buildings in New York are as high as
yeah, definitely, yeah,
because that's not that high. I mean, it's tall, but Anyway, so yeah, so that was a little bit of a critique from me. But so Aunt May tells him if you spot something like that, as far as he has this run in with these guys stealing this ATM that have some of these devices, and yeah, she says if you spot something like that, run the other way. And that's
Yeah.
quite the opposite of the with great power comes great responsibility. Why?
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about Aunt May uh, in this film?
Yeah, I didn't mind her when she was first announced as being Marissa Tomei. I was like, well, she's feels a bit young because Aunt
Mm-hmm.
May is very much meant to be. It seems it's funny. It's like all the characters are getting younger as the all these different movies have progressed. Like Peter Parker has got younger from Tobey Maguire to Andrew Garfield now to Tom Holland. It seems Aunt May has even got even younger again.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I guess it makes
yeah,
sense when you have such a young Spider-Man that Aunt May would
yeah,
also be younger,
definitely,
unless it
yeah.
was unless it was a great aunt more
Yeah,
situation.
so I
Not
think
a
she was meant to be. Yeah, she's meant to be a great aunt.
uh,
Um, but I guess they just made her an aunt, and then
just a
she's
regular
just an
aunt.
aunt. She can be in her 40s, and then yeah, that doesn't mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, and you can. It's one of those things you can nitpick as much as you like, as long as the performance is good and all that. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So what did you I did like her. I thought she was good. What do you think of the humor in the movie in general? I'd say my favorite was the Captain America bits. That was so hilarious.
Yeah, they were good.
I really liked that.
Yeah, they were good, and the way that it came back at the end with the credits was
Yeah,
also great. Yeah.
that's so good. That's probably my favorite joke in the thing when he's like doing the presidential fitness, thing, or I don't know. That just reminded
Well,
me.
I liked it where the sort of pointed in one direction for the teacher, and the teacher happened to be on the other side of the screen.
Yeah, yeah, it reminded me of when I was in high school, or not high school, when I was in elementary school. They had it was when the first President Bush was president, and
Yep.
that's when Arnold Schwarzenegger was his fitness advisor or whatever. And so they had a presidential challenge, a
Oh, okay.
fitness challenge and then it was very similar with Arnold, telling everybody to
That's
get in
cool.
shape or something. So I don't know if they were purposely kind of because there were a lot of sort of vintage '80s kind of callbacks in this movie. And so I wonder if that was a little bit like they had some '80s music, they had some different '80s elements, and
Yeah.
that you saw a little clip of Ferris Bueller. There was stuff like that, and I kind of wondered maybe if if that was also a little bit of a throwback to the presidential fitness challenge. But
Yeah,
anyway,
possibly.
it was really funny, and overall I enjoyed the humor. I know some people get annoyed with the humor in Marvel. They think they are too sort of silly, but I always liked the humor. It doesn't bother me personally.
No, it doesn't bother
Eh,
me at all. I
It
mean,
bothered me a little bit in Guardians Volume 2, but for the most part I like it.
yeah, yeah, it doesn't bother me at all. Really,
Mhm.
it's a good way of setting, and it works with Spider-Man because Spider-Man's meant to be lighthearted by default anyway.
Yeah.
So having humor, it's not an issue for Spider-Man at all.
Okay. Yeah. So let's talk about some of the other villains real quick. You had I guess light villain. This isn't really a villain, but you had Aaron Davis, played by Donald Glover, and he's purchasing weapons from these guys. And you didn't really see as much of him as I thought. I think that was one of those Marvel sort of. I think we'll be seeing more of him in future movies.
Yeah,
And so this was just sort of a little little taste. Uh,
but yeah, definitely, yeah. He was meant to be the Spider-Man villain called the Prowler,
okay.
where maybe they'll introduce him later on in other movies because they didn't actually. Obviously, he wasn't in costume. He wasn't in. It wasn't called
Mhm.
the Prowler by name, but that's his character's meant to be that.
Oh, Aaron
Although he
Davis
did do
is.
an interesting call to for Miles Morales
I wondered about that.
because as his uncle was the Prowler, and um, Yeah, and there was reference to saying, I have a nephew in Queens.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay.
And just,
So, oh, interesting. So, because yeah, it was surprising they didn't use because Donald Glover is such a personable actor. But that's interesting that he's a villain. I didn't know that because he's typically not. He typically doesn't play the villain, Donald Glover. So
no.
didn't know that.
Yeah, because he's had previous Spider-Man experience as well. He voiced Miles Morales in the Spider-Man cartoon they have at the moment. There's a guest star.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he's got a sort of Spider-Man connection as well. So,
well, and we get the Miles Morales animated film next year, so that should be fun.
yeah, hopefully
Looking
that will
forward
be
to
good.
that. Yeah. So, and then you have there's two different shockers.
Yeah.
There's one that gets killed by Vulture pretty early on.
Pretty early on, yeah.
For being a smart aleck. And then there's another one that's a black character that is sort of the second shocker. And I don't know. I didn't have a whole lot with them. They were just kind of his stooges, I felt like.
Yeah, he was very much this to play the stooge kind of character.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Prowler is himself, he wouldn't be able to hold his own movie. He's very much just this blue collar kind of criminal with vibrational powers. Yeah, just rob banks, things like that, rob safes. So yeah, definitely not enough to hold his own movie. As a stooge, he probably works a lot better.
So they go to DC, and this is where Peter takes the tracking device out of his suit, and they figure out that he's been on training wheels. And that's when we first get to hear Karen as the voice of his suit. And I think it was Jennifer Connelly is actually the voice. Did you like that, or was it too much like Jarvis?
Yeah, it was a bit much like Jarvis. Yeah, I'm in two minds about it. I didn't like it when I first was introduced to it, and then I sort of warmed up to it a bit. I think maybe just the way that they did Karen was quite well done. But for Spider-Man, I feel like it starts feeling a bit too Iron Man-y and having too much technology for Spider-Man for my liking. But,
right.
I mean, it's not going to kill the movie for me by any means.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I kind of agree. I didn't love that whole kind of part of it. I'd liked him to have to make kind of more choices, and I felt like sometimes I was a little confused, kind of what was going on and where they were at and stuff like that. But so he ends up. There's this dramatic scene at the Washington Memorial, Washington Monument, where he saves Liz and he saves everybody from the elevator. And that was one of the big sort of action set pieces of the movie. Did you think that was good?
Yeah, I enjoyed that. It had the tension of the elevator falling, and he was short on time and he had to get in there quickly. It sort of had this tension to it. So yeah, I enjoyed it. How about you?
Yeah. You did? Yeah. The only thing that was a little weird was that all of a sudden being afraid of heights.
Yeah,
that was a little strange.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that.
But other than that, it was fun, and then we get pretty soon after we get this boat splitting. The other big sort of set piece was this boat splitting in half sequence. And
yeah,
did you like that?
I liked the way that they did it, like the weaving the webs together and everything. I thought that was cool. It did feel a bit of a retread, though. I feel like they did something like that in the Amazing Spider-Man movies.
Well, and in Spider-Man 2 with the train,
it
felt a little bit similar to that
as well. Yeah,
like I would have rather them have an action scene where he's swinging, as opposed to something more static like that on a boat. But it was fine. I just wasn't my favorite. I prefer the memorial scene.
No, definitely
personally. Yeah. So okay. Let's see. Keep going. We're almost here. Let's see. So after this scene, Tony makes him give up his suit. And you get this line says, if you are nothing without the suit, then you shouldn't have it. What do you think? Did you like? I kind of liked seeing Tony being the tough dad. I liked it.
He was very much the father figure. Like I said earlier, he's the father figure for the movie. He's the Uncle Ben, and that was his great power comes great responsibility line without having to say that for the third time.
Yeah, who would have thought? Tony.
Yeah.
I guess in Iron Man 3, he's also sort of mentoring this kid, so who knows?
Yeah, true. Yeah, no, I like that.
Yeah.
And the fact that he takes away the suit and he's then have to replace it with his own made suit.
Yeah. Yeah, and I thought that Tom Holland was really good, and I thought that he did make some a valid point. Like, why didn't you listen to me? And then Tony says, I did listen to you. But it's sort of like, it doesn't matter if you listen to somebody if you don't tell them that you've listened to them.
Yeah.
Like Peter has a valid point. Like, how is he supposed to read Tony's mind and know that there are all those people, there's all those feds there on the boat and everything like that?
Yeah, I guess it's just for storytelling to move the story forward more than for logic's sake, I guess.
But I thought it was a good well written. I thought the script was actually really solid in this movie. I thought it was, especially considering there were 6 different writers and you had 2 different studios. Considering all of that, I think they did a pretty darn good job with the script.
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes these kind of things, when that happens, it just becomes a bit of a toilet.
Exactly.
It becomes a mixing pot of bad ideas and rewrites and reshoots. Like, if you look at Batman vs Superman, I guess maybe Suicide Squad's a better one, which went through rigorous reshoots after Batman vs Superman's response.
Right.
And how that turned out instead, where the editing was just horrible for that.
Yeah, that's a good example, good comparison. But it felt like an argument that these 2 characters would actually have, and it felt sort of natural. And I could see both people's perspectives, so I liked it. Okay, so then we get the homecoming dance, and this is the big moment where you get this big reveal that Liz's dad is the Vulture. And I would have had a lot more of a surprise with this reveal if the trailer hadn't kind of made it obvious that the girlfriend's dad was going to be Vulture. I knew for sure that, or I was really? 99% sure that was going to happen. And so it wasn't that surprising to me. He's very good and very chilling, especially in the car when he's like,
yeah, definitely.
He's good, but darn it all, Sony.
See, that was a surprise for me because I had only seen the first trailer, and then I often watch the first trailer, and then unless I see it in the cinemas, I don't see any of the other trailers. So because I try and go in clean as possible for these kind of movies.
Lucky, yeah, you should.
So it was a surprise for me. So I guess it's one of those things. It's where marketing ruins the movie, can ruin the movie, even if it's a small bit.
Yeah, it was just it just wasn't as shocking as I think it was for a lot of other people. But anyway, he's sort of this doting dad, and he doesn't realize at first who Peter is, but then quickly kind of catches on. And so you get this back and forth between them. And of course, Peter realizes it immediately who he is, of course. And that was, I thought, really effective. And Peter has to leave the dance right away to go and try to stop
him,
because he knows that the Vulture is going to be going out of town, is what he says. And so anyway, he goes and follows him, and so that was good. And it annoyed me a little bit. Another critique I mentioned in my review is that Sony is notorious for the worst product placement of any company.
Oh, yeah.
And you saw it throughout, like he's eating Doritos. There's just lots of product placement. But man, that Audi product placement was so unneeded. I mean, you have a story about a 15-year-old, and you have to somehow wedge in this car chase scene, where you get to see the Audi like right up front.
Oh yeah.
That annoyed me. And then there's literally a scene where Happy is like, "Look how," he says something like, "Look how fast we're going," or "Look at that," and you see like if the focus of the Audi screen, like
Oh
it's just like.
yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, that annoyed me. It's a nitpick, but that annoyed me a little
Oh yeah.
bit.
That takes you out of the movie sometimes too.
Yeah, it's just like, ugh. And Sony is, like I said, they are the worst at that. The Amazing Spider-Man movies had a lot, but the worst examples ever are the Smurfs movies. Those are just
Oh
the
really?
worst. Oh,
What kind of product placement do they have?
oh my gosh. Every single scene, literally every shot in that movie, there's some kind of Sony product. Sony, like whether the Smurf is like sitting on a Sony laptop, or there'll be like a bus sign that says Sony, or there'll be
Oh
it's
really? No.
bad. It's so bad. Anyway, that's another thing. So that annoyed me a little bit, but we get to moving day, where they're moving all this stuff out of the Avengers Tower to upstate New York, and and Vulture is planning this heist of this plane. So I guess that's the third major action set piece of the
Yeah.
movie. Is at first uh, he Vulture makes the warehouse fall in onto
Yeah.
Peter, and he has to like summon all the strength, which I thought was actually a pretty good moment. I thought Tom Holland was good in that moment, and then there's this whole scene with this plane.
Oh yeah. So the definitely the when he's been crushed by all the concrete, that's sort of a direct homage to a classic story from the '60s as well.
Okay.
So I know which I found called "If This Be My Destiny," where Spider-Man is crushed and he has to summon his strength in a similar kind of manner
Mm.
to get out. So I was like, oh my god, that's that bit. So I was quite happy with that. And yeah, and the fact that it was like crushing him instead of actually doing a sort of a direct fight, I thought was quite clever in terms of it's a quick way to get rid of a character, a hero without having your hands dirty as well, and it's an easy way to escape as well. And so it's because he obviously got somewhere to be, so he can't be wasting his time, wasting his time fighting someone. So he wants to get it done quickly, so he can go get that big score.
Mm.
And so having him the plane scene was quite interesting in terms of it was a different way of doing some action, where you're hanging off the plane, and yeah, it was
Mm.
cool.
Yeah, I agreed. Yeah, it was fun. It was a little hard sometimes in that plane scene, to tell what was going on, is because it was so dark. It was a
Yeah,
little, and the way it was sort of filmed was a little bit jerky, and so that was be my only sort of flaw with it is sometimes it was a little tricky to kind of figure out what was going on. But then let's see here. So this was interesting. So Peter tells Ned that I'm so beyond high school life right now, and so I fully expected him to accept Tony's offer at the end. Tony says, you can come here, you can live here, you can be an official Avenger, and so I don't know. I was surprised that he said no.
yeah. Yes and no. I mean, as a teenager, you very much get that at some stage in your schooling life of I'm so over high school. Yeah, I just want to move on,
Mm-hmm.
do more exciting things with my life. So I can understand that, but I guess there's the way of showing maturity, and there was obviously through dealing with the Vulture where he sort of learned that maturity. So, and yeah, because I wasn't sure if he was going to accept it or not, but I'm glad he didn't. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it also kept Spider-Man separate enough, so he's not just another Avenger kind of deal, and he can sit back in New York and deal with his own villains, and obviously he will be in Infinity War, but it's still very much, it feels more like Spider-Man.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine he's in. I don't think I'm a little. Are you nervous at all for Infinity War?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be like.
I
I feel
mean,
like it's going to
there's
be
seriously like
everything in the kitchen sink.
there's seriously like 50 characters. All of Guardians of the Galaxy. You've got everybody in Black Panther, Doctor Strange, Thor, Hulk, all the rest of the Avengers. Like, there's a lot of characters in this movie.
Yeah, there is. I don't know where they're going to go with that in terms of if there's going to be a couple cameos, or they're going to do the Batman vs Superman that's going to show up on screen, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I
Don't
trust
know.
them because they made Civil War and it was really good. So, and
But
they made
it
Winter
could be.
Soldier.
I mean, it could be just a matter of spinning too many plates for him now. Who
I
knows?
know. And then they've got Spider-Man. I mean, this is a lot of characters. And I also am slightly nervous about Thanos because I really hated Apocalypse in X-Men Apocalypse.
Yeah,
And for some reason, I get the feeling that they're kind of similar, Apocalypse and Thanos. They
yeah. I
seem
mean,
kind of similar.
they're very much in that same kind of villain kind of warehouse of like, big, powerful kind of deal. Domination is their main game. I guess it just depends on what they, beyond that, what they do with them.
Yeah.
I guess.
Anyway, we'll see. We'll have that to look forward to. We can podcast about that. And we do get the MJ reveal then at the end. We find out that she tells the team. And there's one plot hole in here, is that,
Yep.
like, supposedly you get the impression that, like, Liz has been in their school for a long time, right? She's not just, like, moved in. And so he had to have come across her father.
Well,
right?
well,
I
he
mean,
was just looking at it from afar, though, and a lot of the time. So maybe he didn't have that much of a. He didn't go to the parties or anything like that.
maybe,
Who
but
knows?
but anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay, so yeah, he gets the offer, and then we get the post-credit scene. The first post-credit scene, I didn't really understand it. You have this guy with a scar, and he says, "I've got friends who would like to meet him," and do we know who that guy with the scar is?
So he was on the boat. He was the guy doing the deal on the boat, on the ferry.
Oh, okay.
So he obviously got arrested by the FBI, and that's why he's in jail, and how they know each other.
Oh,
But
okay.
he'll go on to be the Scorpion, so he'll probably be a villain in the next movie as the Scorpion, which is a villain that, just like the name, is a guy in a big green exoskeleton kind of suit with a big scorpion tail, pretty much.
Oh dear.
It's very much a product of the 60s, so we'll see how he translates into film, because I feel like that's even more ridiculous than a guy in a bird suit.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I don't know, that'll work. But I guess if they can
Yeah,
make an octopus man good, they can make a scorpion man
yeah.
good. So, okay, and then the last one was just Captain America telling people about patience, and this was definitely an homage to Ferris Bueller, because in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, there's a famous post-credit scene where he
Yeah.
says, he's like, "Go home, bye."
Oh, that's right, yeah.
So that was fun. And so yeah, so that
Yeah,
was the movie.
that credit scene is very much like, there's a lot of John Hughes kind of references throughout the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, I looked up on IMDb. Apparently, part of in the making of it, all the actors were made to watch a lot of John Hughes movies. So
Mm-hmm.
it makes sense that there'd be all these John Hughes references throughout.
Yeah, I liked the sort of high school John Hughes element. Sometimes I feel like his name is sort of thrown around maybe a little too, like, because he was such a good writer. He wasn't just sort of the
Yeah,
high school guy. Like, he was actually a really good writer whose characters happened to be in high school
yeah,
frequently. He also wrote Home Alone. He wrote a lot of great scripts and directed some. And so, he did where she's having a baby. Like, he had other characters. He was just a really good writer. And so I think they did a good job, I think, playing homage to some of his classic high school films. And
Yeah,
I
definitely. Yeah,
I appreciated that. And it was something fresh. It was something different. I think if I was in high school, I would love this movie. I would absolutely love it.
yeah. It speaks to the young people very much, and I guess they're the future Spider-Man fans. They're the ones that you're gonna see. They're gonna see this movie in droves.
Well, and I loved anything when I was that age that sort of was about a character that kind of was independent and could sort of make up their own mind and do their own things, and I don't know, I really responded to those kind of characters, and so I would have really liked this character.
I would have loved him as well. Yeah, I really loved the Tobey Maguire character back then because he was sort of the loser.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that sort of spoke to me back in this, and this will probably speak to a lot of nerdy people, nerdy kids, teenagers as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, when I was in high school, the only comic book movies I were Batman Forever.
No!
I was in high school. Batman Forever and Batman and Robin.
Oh no!
So it wasn't a good time. So severe movies, but I really responded to independent type characters. Yeah. So, all right. Well, so that's basically everything. Was there any other part that you want to talk about?
No, that's good with me, I reckon.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And yeah, if you were to say between like 1 to 10, what would you give this film?
I'd probably give it an 8.5, maybe 8.75.
Okay. I'd probably give it a 7.5. It's a little lower, but still solid recommendation, I would say.
So, I mean, I had a smile on my face throughout the whole movie. So that's So that's how I could tell if I really enjoy something. If there's a smile on my face the whole way through.
Right, definitely. So okay, so where can people find you?
So you can find me at howtolovecomics.com, where I have all kinds of articles. I got some on Spider-Man if people are interested in reading Spider-Man. My latest one is all about a classic story called the Commuter Cometh, which they did reference in Spider-Man Homecoming as well. So if you're interested in the sort of the more suburban aspects that they had in the movie and the misadventures of Spider-Man in suburbia, go check it out. I've also got one about a more general one about the 14 Spider-Man stories you should read if you're looking for a bit more other Spider-Man stories as well.
Cool.
You can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/howtolovecomics and twitter.com/howtolovecomics. Feel free to tweet me if you want to talk about anything about comics, or if you have any questions or anything like that. Happy to answer any questions.
Sweet. Yeah, and I'll have all those links down in the description section. And you can find me at Smiling LDS Girl on all social media. And tomorrow, I'm actually going to be having the final rounds of our superhero tournament. We just did finish the Twitter version, and now David and Larry and Chris are going to be joining me to hash out their version of the superhero tournament. So Spider-Man Homecoming won't be on there, but it'll be fun. So that's something to look forward to. And then next week is going to be different on my channel because I'm going to be going to D23
that'd be exciting.
Yeah, on Thursday. Really excited. So I won't have my normal like family movie night and stuff like that next week because I'll be doing updates and different things like that from the convention. So it should be pretty fun.
That'll be fun.
Yeah. So, all right. I hope maybe we'll even get some Marvel news, I'm sure, at the live action panel. We'll probably find out some about Black Panther. And
or maybe some Thor Ragnarok as well, probably.
Oh, yeah. So, all right. Well, thanks so much, and we'll talk again soon.
Yeah. See ya.